You're listening to the Murder Speaks podcast, the show that spills the tea about true crime. Here's your host, Wendy Hinbest.
Hey, welcome back. So I changed my podcast name to Murder Speaks. I decided it was more appropriate, more fitting than What's Up, since this podcast is about real crime stories and about murder. So there you go. So welcome back to Murder Speaks. So today's true crime story is about 15-year-old Becky Stowe from Niles, Michigan. She lived with her mother and her mother's boyfriend, Steve, and her and Steve didn't get along. Becky's best friend was Jacqueline Kaiser, and they also hung around somebody by the name of Art. Now, Art liked Becky, but she didn't like him that way. Becky had her eye on Robert Lehman. Now, Robert Lehman had a girlfriend named Angela Schneider, but that didn't stop Becky from hanging out with him. Robert keeps wanting to hang out with Becky too. At first, they're just hanging out. But then, they start sleeping together. So he was cheating on his girlfriend, Angela. My guess is he probably wasn't getting it from Angela. Now, Robert's family liked Angela. She was the real girlfriend. Robert considered Becky low class, and I guess only good for sex. So he wanted to keep their relationship a secret. Now, one night, her friend Art comes over, and they end up having sex. But she's interested in Robert. So one day, Becky and her mother's boyfriend Steve get into a fight. So she packs up her clothes and moves in with her best friend Jacqueline. July 13th, 1993, Becky goes missing. Jacqueline comes home and Becky isn't there. She finds a note that Becky left that said, "Went to talk to Rob." Robert called Jacqueline looking for Becky, but she told him that Becky is supposed to be with him, but he said she wasn't. So where is Becky? Worried, Jacqueline calls Becky's mother to see if she knows where Becky is. Her mother called the police to report her missing. Becky's mother thought she ran away from home, and Jacqueline had something to do with it. So the police begin to question Jacqueline, and she tells them about Robert Lehman. So the investigators went to question Robert. He had an alibi for when Becky went missing. He tells the police that he worked his first job, then went to visit his mother on the way to his second job. So he had an alibi. Jacqueline's boyfriend Todd becomes a suspect because he was nowhere around when Becky disappeared. But then Todd was ruled out because he was never with her. Then Jacqueline drops a bombshell on the police. She tells the police that Becky did not move out because she didn't get along with her mother's boyfriend. She moved out because she was pregnant. And she slept with two guys, Robert Lehman and Art. But Becky knew who the father was. She tells Art that Robert is the father the night before she disappeared. So the police give Robert a lie detector test, and he passed. So the police question Steve, Becky's mother's boyfriend. Apparently he missed work the day Becky went missing and the day after she went missing. And he had no alibi. He offered to take a polygraph test, but then never showed up. July 20th, 1993, Steve decides to get a lawyer and refused to take a polygraph test. And a few months later, Steve takes all of his stuff and moves out, making him suspect number one. So Angela and Robert go on with their lives. The case goes cold. 2 years pass, and Robert's girlfriend tells the police that Robert killed Becky. He told her he did. Apparently, he wanted Becky to have an abortion, but when she refused, he strangled her. Now, according to the forensic pathology report, Becky was choked to unconsciousness, but she was still alive. So Robert buried her alive. He tried to convince the jury it was an accident, but they didn't believe him. I mean, of course they didn't believe him. How do you strangle somebody and bury them by accident? Duh. So he was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with no possibility of parole. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me for today's true crime story. If you like it, please share it and subscribe. And if you are a true crime addict like me, check out my store, crystalkiss.com, for some murder merch. T-shirts, hoodies, and leggings. Join me again for some more true crime stories. Thanks. Bye.